So, what is system dynamics and what is strategy? And how do these things relate? System dynamics is the use of quantified causal diagrams and simulation models to understand and manage issues that feature complex behavior arising from stock accumulation and feedback. Right? That's what I've just told. That's the story I just told you about the marine engineering business. Right? That's what we just did. And it occurs just about everywhere. So if you have a method or a framework, a theory about how the world works that does not incorporate stock accumulation and feedback, cannot be correct. So most econometric models, for example, cannot be correct. Right? At best, they can approximate. Right? They cannot be correct because stock accumulation and feedback destroys any possibility of discovering linear causal relationships. They cannot be correct. So these mechanisms occur just about everywhere. Spreadsheets and regression models cannot handle this. They cannot. It's not a question of if we just work hard, we can do it. No, you can't. When you do this, what you end up with is you end up with a standard, we call it an architecture. It's a slightly unfortunate word. I wish I hadn't chosen it because an architecture is static as well, isn't it? We need something, we need a better term, but architecture for now. Where does profit come from? Profit is revenue minus costs. Where does revenue come from? It is sales multiplied by price. Sales comes from customers. Price affects whether we win or lose customers. Why do customers come to us? Because we have products that the customers want and because we do marketing and because the price is attractive. If we have good products at an attractive price, we get sales. We choose to develop products. We choose to set a price. These are decisions that we take. No one is forcing us to do these things. We've got to be able to supply what the customer wants. And in order to do that, we have staff. We decide to hire staff. Staff decide to leave, maybe. We decide to add capacity. And capacity and staff give us the ability to serve the demand coming from customers and fulfill the sales. And where do costs come from? Costs come from the number of staff we employ, the amount of capacity we have, and the marketing we spend. So this is as small a model of a generic enterprise as it is possible to find, I think. I can't make it any smaller than this. Now, different enterprises have different versions of this with different characteristics. So if I'm an airline, this is travelers. Or these customers are travelers who choose to fly with our airline. Right? The product range for an airline is the number of routes it offers and the number and the attractiveness of those routes to people. That's its product range. Staff, pilots, cabin crew, ground crew. Capacity, what's the capacity of an airline? What's the capacity of an airline? Seats on the aircraft. So it's the number of aircraft multiplied by the number of seats. That's the capacity. And we need to represent this in kind of per day terms. So we can fly a certain number of people per day, and the number of customers multiplied by their purchase frequency is how many flights per day we sell. That's an airline, right? It doesn't matter if it's Air Asia or Cathay Pacific or Ryanair or that is an airline, right? They aren't different from each other. They are the same. They have different details in them, but they've all got customers, routes, aircraft and staff, right? And cash. Law firm, right? A law firm has clients. It has services that it offers to those clients. So a corporate law firm sells litigation services. a consumer law firm sells conveyancing, the buying and selling of real estate. For a law firm, staff and capacity are the same thing. They don't rely on physical capacity. Yeah, they've got offices and they've got computers, but the capacity to do the work is the people, is the number of lawyers that they have. So as I say, these are pretty standard. There are some kind of slightly extreme exceptions, but this hits most things. And by the way, this also applies to the public sector. I'm doing some work in the UK right now on care homes for elderly people. Right? So customers are the number of elderly people who need to be looked after. The capacity is how many care homes there are. The staff is how many nurses and how many carers there are in the care homes. So you can photocopy this for the public sector too. I just did a small study for the London police force, right? For London police force, this is interesting, isn't it? What is the demand that police forces exist to deal with? It's the crime rate. Who are the people who drive the crime rate? Criminals. Right? So they don't have customers, they have criminals. Right? But the police have a number of services that they provide to fulfill the task of managing the quantity, the rate of crime that's coming from the criminals. Right? They have staff, that's police officers, and they have some capacity. They have some police cars, and they have some IT to deal with these things. Now, a police force isn't interested in trying to make profit, but it must make sure that its revenue and its costs are sustainable. So they have a cash and a cash flow orientation as well. So as I say, this works equally well in the public sector and the corporate sector and in non-profit cases. Okay, so how do we do this? Well, start with another question. System dynamics has been known for 50 years. It was invented in the 1960s. If this is so smart, why doesn't everybody do it? How many people in this room heard of system dynamics before I told you? So where have the rest of you been? Right? Have you been asleep for the last 30 years? Well, it's not your fault, it's our fault. Right? It's our fault you haven't heard about this. And the reason that it's our fault is we've made it too difficult. It's been too difficult. It's been complicated, it's been technical, it's been hard to do. One of the features of why it's hard to do is because we've had, in my humble opinion, my colleagues in the field may disagree with me, but I think we have tried to do this the wrong way. Now, if we were faced with a new challenge, the traditional way to do this would be set out the scope of the whole problem you're trying to solve. Right? Talk to everybody who knows about the problem and map qualitatively what you think all these things are and how you think they might be related. That would typically take 3 months. It would involve many meetings with many people. When you've got that, you've got a map of the whole domain. You then throw that map into a room where there are some people with very big brains, right? And they try to figure out where the stocks are in this diagram, and they try to formulate the equations to make this darn thing work. Right? After another 3 months, what you get is a model that doesn't really look much like the real world and doesn't really behave correctly, and it's cost a lot of money, it's taken too long, and it doesn't work. Does that sound familiar to any of you from the IT field? What do you call that in the IT field? That's the waterfall model. That's right. That's the waterfall model. Specify everything that everybody wants. Define all the relationships. It's got to be codified to the last element of detail. Then you throw it at the coders to turn code out that will do what the software is supposed to do. Right? And what's the experience in the IT field of the waterfall method? With some exceptions, takes too long, costs too much, doesn't work. Right? We can do this much more quickly. Anyone like to guess how long that marine engineering model actually took to build? 2 Skype calls of 2 hours each, plus about 3 or 4 hours for the CEO to get some of the data together to make sure the model worked. Right? Now that's not because I'm such a smart guy, right? It's because I followed a procedure. I followed a procedure. It's a reliable procedure. It's a rigorous procedure. It is a self-checking procedure. If you go wrong at any point, the model tells you you've gone wrong, and you immediately go back and fix it. So this is Agile. That's what we're doing. We're doing Agile. So you identify the outcomes of concern. That's that time chart of what's happening to profit or what's happening to the crime rate. Trace the causality back to the stocks, and you immediately have a working model. So after 15 minutes with the CEO on the Skype call, we already had a working model of how the customers using the water treatment system were generating sales. And he was saying, yes, we've grown this number of customers, we're selling units at this rate, at this price, and that explains our revenue. 15 minutes, that's how long that took. Right? Then you say, so how fast are you winning customers? Right? So, oh, we're winning about 3 per month. Okay, there's the flow rate. Right? So you immediately get a working model and quite often actionable findings. Then you quantify the stock accumulation, then you extend the working model, and you get actionable findings. If you want to know more about this, there's a brief video on that, sdl.re/Agile Delft. It's not a very good quality recording because it was done in a live environment, but you should be able to follow it. Then you trace the causality back, and then you find the interdependence, and again you get a bigger, still working model, and then you just have to go back round that. You don't usually have to go round that cycle more than twice. So that you don't have to repeat it more than twice, so you do it 3 times. And that pretty much captures most models. Now, once we've done that, we can add a whole load of things to this, right? A whole load of really useful things. So this is our core model of just about any enterprise. This is customers. Customers are not all the same. We have big customers, we have small customers. We have customers who bring us large sales and small sales. We have customers who demand a lot of service or not so much service, right? Those are called attributes. We have products that appeal to many customers or to few customers. We have staff who have high levels of skills and small levels of skills. And we have capacity of different size. So these are attributes of these things. Okay? I talked about staff developing from junior to middle to senior to president. That is a pipeline. We have pipelines for customers. I think we've got time for this. How many people in this room have never heard of Coca-Cola? Okay. So here we have a stock of people who have never heard of Coca-Cola, and it has 0 people in it. How many people, when they want a soft drink and Coca-Cola is available, would always ask for Coca-Cola? How many people here would ask for Coca-Cola if they could get it? Yeah, 1, 2, 3, yeah, not sure, 4, 5, 6, 7, okay. So about 10 people would always ask for Coca-Cola. So here's nobody who's not heard of it. Here is 10 people who would always ask for it. These are loyal customers. How many people would drink Coca-Cola, but they might drink something else? Let me guess about 40. So I've got 10 loyal customers. I've got about 40 disloyal customers. How many people have heard of Coca-Cola, but they've no idea why anybody would want to drink it? Nobody, okay. So these are aware people who do not understand Coca-Cola, and nobody in this room. So all the rest of you must be in the middle. You understand what Coca-Cola is, you understand why people drink it, you just wouldn't, right? You might positively dislike it, right? But you do understand what it is that other people like about it. So that is a customer pipeline, right? Unaware, aware, informed, disloyal customers, loyal customers. Everybody in the world has to be in one of those 5 boxes. They are mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive. Right? The wonderful thing about working with really bright students is that they will insist on taking what you tell them and misusing it. Right? They're very naughty, right? They will misuse what they do. So one executive MBA student of mine, we did the Coca-Cola thing with them. And she worked for GlaxoSmithKline, one of the big drugs companies. And I asked my students to do an assignment, and she came back with this assignment. And you know what she'd done? She had applied the customer pipeline to organization change. The company was trying to move the way in which the company operated from one set of norms to another set of norms. So what she did was she got some data and figured out how many people in the company were unaware of the organizational change, how many were aware of it but did not understand it, how many people understand it, how many people were trying it but they weren't quite sure and they were a bit worried, and how many people were completely committed to the new way of working. Right? And she looked at the marketing and promotion and training activities that push people up that pipeline. So that's pipelines. That's developing through stages. Competition is just dead easy in this. If you're trying to sell Coca-Cola, there are 3 things you want. You want people to start drinking Coca-Cola, you want people not to stop drinking Coca-Cola, and you want them to buy it more often. Those are the 3 things you want. Unfortunately, Pepsi wants the same thing. Right. So what we have to do is we have to figure out what are the factors that cause customers to make those 3 decisions. Now I said early on that almost all of this method is simple arithmetic. This is the bit that is not simple arithmetic. When you're trying to explain those behaviors, and that's where you can use regression analysis, you can use marketing research tools, you can use behavioral analysis, but even then you will only get an approximate explanation for the rates of gain and the rates of loss and the purchase rates of customers. Okay, then we have policy. We know how to formulate policy. How do we make the decision to set the price or to hire more people? You're probably wondering, when the heck are we going to get to enterprise architecture here? Right? We're nearly there. We're nearly there. We can deal with intangibles. We can deal with reputation and morale. We can deal with capabilities, the capability to do things. An organization's capability is more than the skills of its people. So these are some extras. These are each useful on their own and as part of the whole architecture. Now, I have, I think, some slides on each of those, but I want to get on to the enterprise architecture stuff, so I'm going to go quite quickly through the next bit. This is Europe's most successful low-fare airline, Ryanair. It's been going for 30 years. It has exactly the same strategic architecture it had today that it had 30 years ago when the company was formed. It has aircraft, routes, passengers, and airports and staff. This is what strategy currently says. It says, who are we focusing on, what are we offering, and how do we do it? The strategy field has no answer to this. How do you get from here to the profit out there? That's the strategy problem. Well, how you get from there to there is that you have a time-phased action plan. What fare, what routes, what frequency, which cities, how many aircraft, how many staff. But how do you figure that out? Well, that's what we can now do. That's what this method allows you to do. So here's our time-phased action plan. That action plan acts on the system, and the system generates performance. Any enterprise, public sector, non-profit, for-profit, is an engineered system. It is a designed system. It may be purposefully designed or it may be accidentally designed, but it is a design system. So the only way you can explain its performance is understanding how the system works and how our decisions affect that. We can design this thing here. Right? And those are the equations. You remember those? Right? That is it. Right? Just repeat those equations as many times as you need, and you have a complete representation of the system.